Uh, Assalamu alaikum everyone.
Assalamualaikum. I was supposed to
We
say.
start.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Rami.
And I'm Mariam Anwar. We're back again.
Let's do it. I think it's gonna be. Sorry, we're just adjusting a little. Okay. Cool.
Alright. I think
This
will
is.
be it. Sorry, we were just adjusting. Alright, hope you can see us. And we now start with another live session, which is by the name of boundary setting. Right?
Yes.
So,
I'm gonna start. Since Mariam is our in-house therapist, and we work with a lot of boundaries, and we talk about boundaries at the center as well.
Yeah.
So, how did you come up with the topic of boundary settings?
More like boundary setting is very personal to me because back in school and college days, I remember being very much invested in my relationship, especially friends. So much so I wanted to give so much into, being part of the friends group, being like them, although actually most of my friends in college and school were very different from me. And that's why I was very much invested in them, and I forgot myself as to who I was, and I became this other person altogether. And there were definitely people taking advantage of this, what we can say, walking all over me, because I wanted to invest as much as I could just to be a part of them. I think by the time I came to university, I realized that it became quite painful to lose myself and not having anything to stand up for, basically. Because once you have things to stand up for, you have some sort of identity with you, and identity comes from boundary. If you look at my Instagram, the Instagram page, I talked about identity crisis, and part of identity, of making an identity, is to commit to what you believe in, commit to the boundaries.
Would you say a lot of people commit to, they have a certain set of morals and values, so would that come with building a boundary also? Does that come with that?
Yeah, building boundaries can be morals and values, can be your belief, whatever you stand up for, right? It's basically what I would simply say, where I start and the others end. That is a boundary, right? If I even keep this even more simple, that is, it's a limit where I and others have, meaning that I have a personal space or there's a professional space, and that you can imagine that like a radius, or let's even make this even more simple. For example, you have a house door. You don't open it for everyone to walk in and walk all over you, come and steal things, or even just come and sit
even
down.
when you open the door, you you
do check who it is. You don't keep it closed all the time so that you become isolated, right? You use that door and check whether that person is supposed to come in or not. That is your boundary. That's consider it your personal boundary, right? That's how you develop it, and that's an understanding of it. And in this day and age, in the 21st century, when I realized, especially after college, that I needed boundaries in my life, the first thing I realized when I looked around my surrounding is that boundary is something. It's uncool, right? I mean, you're not. People consider you very closed when you have boundaries. They consider you like very serious person, and they don't want to accept you because you're not fun anymore. Basically, right? I think you've heard of this a lot of times. And usually introverts have
boundaries.
They have boundaries, and they are the ones who are most discriminated in this. Although some of them have unhealthy boundaries, but some do have healthy ones. But they're very much discriminated in universities, colleges, because I get introvert clients. right?
Yeah.
And they do have a boundary in which they want to be isolated, or they want to,
Spend time with themselves.
and also spend time with those people whom they really want to connect.
Yeah.
They don't want to, connect with everyone because it's too overwhelming for them. And that is understandable.
Yeah.
That's how they're made.
Yeah.
So what happens is that they become an outsider. And that basically the peer pressure
Yeah.
is what what is actually emotionally destabilizes us. It
Yeah.
makes us sad. It makes us confused as to where we are, what we are doing.
Can we kind of go back to your personal experience about boundary setting? So you mentioned that you sort of like it happened when you were in college, where boundary setting was an issue. So how did you deal with that? How did you come to the conclusion that this is a boundary that I need to set?
First, I had to know myself.
Yeah.
Who was I? I mean, if we go back to what I mentioned in Identity Crisis, I will repeat it all over here, is that I'm a human. I have feelings. I need to protect them. Not protect them so much that I close up and don't open it so much that people walk all over me.
Yeah.
But I need to have that door because I'm a human and my feelings are important. Those are as precious as gold and silver that we collect. And then I had to know, as a female, who was I? Because in this 21st century, I don't know for males, but for females, because we have to be very competitive in the college and office world, we kind of have to take on some masculine traits as well. So I really had to define myself as a female. And as a female, I realized that a female is a compassionate being, right? And I celebrated that years later, right?
You didn't hide away from it.
No, not even in work settings. People in work setting, you cannot be compassionate because then, you'll be taken advantage of. It's how you use compassion.
Yeah.
Which is another topic altogether. But moving on from being a female, and then I understood as a person, a Pakistani person, I realized myself as a Muslim as well. As a South Asian, because in South Asia we are a collectivist culture, we go with the group, right? So I understood that dynamics, and because when I realized who I was,
that is when you were able to set your
edges. My boundaries, edges, I was able to set certain limits, right? Limits that I could protect myself, meaning protect myself in a way that I don't bring myself to a pain. So if I just take a personal example, what I used to do is that I think when I initially started office 2 years ago in a clinic, I was given responsibility to look over at clients that were coming over, take assessments, intakes and all. There was some very office related work. And other people, sometimes they used to come to me, they said, oh, could you take up my work as well, because I have an emergency or I have to do something else. And it was also work related as well. So I took on their work. I took on their work to such an extent that I was completely occupied. Burnout came way later, like months later. But that was I'm talking about 4 months later. But that was the beginning.
So for 4 months you hadn't set that boundary, okay, this is not my...
I hadn't set it. I used to take it up. So much so that from 9 to 5, in between 1 hour of break, sometimes clients were also coming during the break as well. I had to attend to them. I had back-to-back work. And I had 3 clients at the same time for the small work, and I couldn't divide myself accordingly. Then it became to such an extent that I remember in Ramzan, I had so much neck pain, and that was terrible because my Eid just went on bed rest. Then I realized that no, we need boundaries, which leads to the third stance. Learn how to be assertive. And in assertiveness, learn how to say no. No is very important. Something my father taught me, something my cousin who is working in Dubai, she taught me. She said, Mariam, learn how to say no.
Yeah.
Because then the other person gets a message that you're not some easy.
Yeah. That I agree with. A lot of times with work, like you mentioned, at workplaces, there is sort of that fine line between helping someone out and then crossing that boundary, right? एक होता है ना कि I'm going to go help this person out, but then it's something else when you take on their work, right?
The threshold is pain. Again, if something becomes painful in terms of emotionally, physically, socially as well. Like if you're paying the price for something that you were never responsible of. For example, socially, we could say that if a mishap happens with so much work, then you have some, like, you are answerable to a boss or someone else, and they start blaming you for something that you thought I was helping.
Yeah.
So, for example, I took in so much work, although I never got complaints from the bosses. But then there was some work that were delayed, and then my boss would be like, why aren't you completing this? The fault was mine because I took up so much work. So this is social consequence, social pain as well.
Yeah. I think also with our culture, time boundaries sort of also very important.
Yes, very much.
It happens at work, it happens at social events, for example, like weddings. They start so late. Then it happens with giving work after working hours. So वो जो एक 5 o'clock के बाद या 6 o'clock के बाद जो time period है, work's coming in from the office. And especially with COVID, work from home वाली situations, I feel like companies have failed to understand that working hours एक चीज होती है. So I've talked to like a lot of people where they've been saying that I'm getting calls at like 9 p.m. like when I'm eating dinner. So it's as a culture we also lack boundaries in the sense of time management and personal boundaries. You can just ask somebody anything you want.
Definitely. That's a good point that you raised. Especially I just recalled weddings. Because there's some people who are very responsible about wedding timings. Like I know this specific family, they started on time with little guests, alright? And they opened food on time. Later on, after some days after the wedding, the family members or the friends, they literally talk behind their back that why did they not wait for us? What would have happened if they started a little late and everything? They were actually, negative comments behind it. I actually heard that.
But so what that family is doing, they're setting their time boundaries.
Exactly. And you're not supposed to be affected by this. You don't have to be sorry. That's another thing which would lead me. You don't have to be sorry for, keeping up your boundaries. Like, for example, if you want to go and pray, all right, you don't have to be sorry, I just have to go and pray. No, that's your boundary. You don't have to be sorry about it, all right? You say,
that is your moral, that is your value, that is your religion.
Because that is something I learned. I was in Rome for exchange program. It's a Catholic country, all right? And it is that, obviously, that country is a place where boundaries are, actually, most of the time, they are respected because you've got multicultural people. You've got people from different religious groups staying there. So from there, I learned that if I had to do something related to my morals or my rituals or anything, I stopped saying sorry. It's like, I gotta go and do this. And they'd respect that. Actually, anybody would respect that. Even over here, the reason why people are not respecting boundaries is because
they're not enforced also at times.
That's the point. They're not enforced. Because when you say to someone, sorry, I have to do this, or maybe I'll do this later, or I'll do this thing later because let's just work on this. That is when they start to take advantage. And that's when they start to get bold. My father, who's worked in international companies in Dubai, he had lots of clients who used to call him. His whole work time was occupied with calls of clients. But they knew, my father's name is Anwar, they knew that Anwar would not be in his seat between 1 to 2 p.m. because that is his prayer time and his lunch time. And specifically prayer time. And that's what my father told me. He said, people will adjust to your boundaries. They have to adjust. Because when you start enforcing it, then they'll take you seriously. Okay, this person means business.
Yeah.
Right?
And once a person starts breaking their boundaries, that is also when an issue could come up. It could be like, oh, this ये तो अपनी वो नहीं कर रहा कि you know when you how you said कि this person means business, they're gonna think the opposite of that. Then if the person's breaking conflict आ जाता है.
Now this is another topic I'd like to discuss on. Yes, there is a possibility that between boundaries you're gonna have conflict. All right. Know how much you can compromise. Right. So, for example, let's look at, because again I recall my father's boundaries, because he's the one who taught me. He has worked in an international American company, alright. American companies have lots of parties, alright, and their parties go late at night, alright. So my father used to be part of their parties, and their parties were, later on late at night they'd have drinks and alcohol and everything. So their parties are basically would start after 8 o'clock, the formal ones, alright, in which formal setting would go up, and they would invite people for talks and everything. And after 10 o'clock, it would be their party time, if you know what I mean. So my father would attend
8
to 10. After that, he would leave.
Yeah.
I mean, that you've balanced out your boundaries, you've made them happy, you've made yourself happy, you made yourself comfortable, and them comfortable as well. And they also realize that, okay, he can compromise on his boundaries, but there are certain limits. Right? So this is where balance can come in. There's some boundaries yes you cannot compromise on any cost. You must know that which one you can compromise on, which one you cannot. Alright? And I get a second example as well. Personally, when I was in Rome, I traveled to Spain. And in Spain, with tourists, what happens is that the Europeans mostly they stay up late at night every day. They're just walking around the city, going to cafes, bars, and everything. It's every night. For me, I need my sleep. Otherwise, I have a terrible headache. And especially tourism, you're talking about a week's tour every day, going to a different city. I don't know how they were awake, but. In one of those 5 days, I thought that, okay, one day I'll spend the night with them. Because I was consistently excusing them because I have to sleep and because I get a terrible neck pain if I don't get my sleep. Alright. But one day I did it and I fulfilled...
That was your compromise with your boundaries.
Exactly. I fulfilled my boundaries and I fulfilled what they wanted. It's good.
But then that's not conflict that's coming in. That's you compromising a boundary.
Yeah, because before that, the conflict is that why isn't she coming with us? She is, or this person who's maintaining a boundary is very extreme, or they don't like to, be around. Then conflict is basically they start to fight over it. If not fight over it, then show you a cold shoulder. In some instances, like in the case of the wedding, cold shoulders are fine because you started on time. You don't want to delay things because there are other you got life also the next day. So in that instance, cold shoulder is fine. But then in terms of fun or anything else, if they're showing a cold shoulder, then you go like, okay, fine, I'll go this much. The rest you're gonna have to fulfill, but I will just go this much, and we're good.
So what you're trying to I'm understanding from this, a boundary needs to be set. However, it needs to be like something that you hold. So you cannot break it again and again, but once in a blue moon, you can compromise on it. Depending on the boundary.
There's some, like I said, there are just absolutely no compromise on there. And they're very little. If you just look at those kind of boundaries in which you are staunch on it, they're what, 10%, 15%, right? The rest of the boundaries you can compromise to a certain extent. One has to figure that all out. And you can only figure that out when you know who you are. Once you know who you are, you can explore your edges, your boundaries, which one you want to maintain, which one you want to compromise on, which one you want to let go of. Alright? And years later, even if you want, you can revise all of them consciously. This is all conscious work. And with that, the behavior that should come is assertiveness, not aggressiveness.
Yes, assertiveness is
Not
important.
like your edges should not become like thorns to others. All right. Not passiveness that they all become cotton. No, they have to be an edge. All right. Learn how to say no. Learn how to communicate that why I can't do this, or there's a reason I'm not doing this. Very politely, very nicely. All right. And people get it. Even if they have cold shoulders, it's all right. You did your work.
So let's wrap up.
We'll wrap this up, and I think next we will talk about procrastination.
That's fun.
Yeah, procrastination, very much needed.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
I hope you enjoyed this session, and do revise your edges, your boundaries, and keep yourself emotionally safe. That's very important.
Emotionally safe, we can do one on this also.
Yeah.
How to keep one emotionally safe.
Because it doesn't make you a selfish person.
Yeah.
Alright? It just, you're helping yourself. By helping yourself, you can help others.
That's true. Okay. See you.
Alright. Allah Hafiz, everyone.
Bye.